Oh, three, two, oh no, wait, we are live now. Oh my goodness gracious. This is BetaCodex live with the people you see on the Niels Pflaeging, Stefan Schmeing. I didn't even ask how you pronounce your name. Stefan Schmeing and me, Ryan Erickson. And we are here. Hello. And good now to you. Welcome to BetaCodex Live, the semi possibly bi-tri-weekly exploration of all things democratization, federalization, and self-organization in the workplace, in the world of work. So, and here today, Niels Pflaeging. Hello. Hello, Niels. Yes, you're saying maybe you can hear me, maybe you can't. I think you can. Yes, you can. Like, hey,
I
guys,
just
come on.
have to figure out some videos running. Just
Okay.
no, now it's better. Now it's better. Okay, yes, I had this same session going on in a video stream, so I was hearing an echo. It was terrible. Good, good to see you both in the 77th session of BetaCodex Live, and this time we're talking about a new book, right?
Yes, indeed. The book it is titled, as you see, "What Would Ohno-San Do?" And we have a guest. Yes. Oh, so the three people.
We all have it.
We all have it and marked up. Stefan. Now, would you pronounce your last name for me? I tried Schmeing, but I'm not sure if that was okay. Is that okay? How would you say it?
Yeah, Schmeing is a correct pronunciation of my second name, but simply call me Stefan.
Stefan. All right, Stefan Niels.
Yes.
Well, here we are in the midst of this book. So, Stefan, you being a new person to the stage, I would love it if you said a minute or two or so about who you are and why Ohno is important to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm 61 years old and I'm married. We have one daughter. And as to my profession, I have been working for a Japanese company called Marubeni, well known in Japan. It's a big group. And our office is located in Düsseldorf. We are a European entity together with our parent company located in London. I'm in charge for credit risk management, quality management, and sustainability management. And why I'm interested in Ohno-San, it has to do, of course, with my activities working for a Japanese company, and and I'm following Niels' path for a long time. And I was especially fascinated about his publication, Heroes of Leadership, which was the basis, I guess, for his books, What Would Do? And he started doing two fantastic editions about Drucker and Deming. And this year I had the opportunity to meet Niels in person in Wiesbaden. But at that time, the idea of the new edition wasn't born yet. Later on, we are exchanging opinions and writing to each other on several platforms. And I asked him, Niels, what is going on with your beautiful series? We need a third edition of your What Would edition. And he immediately replied and said to me, "You're welcome to make suggestions." And I said, "Oh, okay." And one of my suggestions was Taiichi Ohno, because I said Ohno-San would perfectly match as a following addition to Deming, because Deming worked a lot in Japan, and why not Ohno-San? And he said, "Okay, that's a brilliant idea. How about doing it together?" And I was completely surprised that he offered a cooperation to me, and the result is now available, and it was an amazing experience for me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Stefan. Great to meet you and have you here. And now, as far Niels, as far as you, I know the time being the huge part of your practice and your exploration now. Why this book? Why now? My question for you.
For me?
Yeah, for you, Niels.
Why this book now? Well, first of all, because Stefan pushed me, right? That's what happens when you, because sometimes everything that Stefan just said is correct. We had this ongoing conversation on whatever, jazz, fusion jazz, and the Deming book, and so on. And when and I think he started suggesting names to me, of other people from the field of management who would deserve to be paid homage to through a What Would XYZ Do book. And when Stefan suggested Taiichi Ohno, I thought, okay, this might be tough. I think we agreed at the beginning that we wouldn't decide if we would decide later if this would work out, because I wasn't quite sure if about Taiichi Ohno's books. I had one or two of Taiichi Ohno's books already. No, of course, I have everything. We both, Stefan and I, we have all the books by Taiichi Ohno and related to Taiichi Ohno. But at the time, I wasn't so sure if there was enough material in those things, and if the quotes would be, interesting for readers today and kind of funny as well. Because I think a book of quotes, and this goes for the previous books that Stefan mentioned of quotes by W. Edwards Deming and Peter Drucker, they are hilarious as well. They're very serious, very insightful, very interesting, but they are also hilarious. And when Silke opened the PDF edition of this book, like the draft version on her computer, because I let her, of course, take a look at a almost ready edition of the book, and when she read the first quotes, she started laughing out loud immediately when she read the first quotes. Common sense is always wrong. She loved it so much that I knew this would work, But there was this in the process. I think Stefan, I hope you remember, there was this point when we both agreed, okay, this can work. There are so many interesting quotes, and with Taiichi Ohno, maybe we'll talk about this a little more profoundly. The quotes were somehow they had to be extracted from the soil, so to speak. They had to be right. This was in a way, this has been the most challenging book of the series so far. Stefan, not sure how you see it.
Yeah, please, Stefan.
I completely agree with you. And at the time when our common idea was born, we started collecting material. His Taiichi Ohno-san's own book and other books being about his work, and it was a real challenge to read them carefully and to understand his approach to management and the Toyota Priduction System. And we had to sort out helpful books, and other books had not been helpful. For instance, the Gary Leica book, I had a word with Niels before that session. Yes, Jeffrey Leica, and it's too technocratic, it's boring, it's not accessible. And but other books have been very helpful. They are mentioned in the book, and we started to discuss, can we make it or not? And is the material sufficient? Is it worth being published? And we developed a common understanding how to create the book, and we started collecting quotes. Afterwards, the next step was to define a framework. How can we put all the quotes in a framework? And of course, his previous book gave a very good orientation for me how to do it. And then you have to sort out the things, which quotes are good enough for the book, and which ones should be left out. And but but very soon afterwards, we created the chapters and put the quotes to the chapters. And I never thought that it would be so challenging to define the sequence of the quotes. And I must admit that I underestimated this, but Niels was a very supportive how to do it, because I thought, does it really matter whether this quote shall be the first or the second, or in the shall be mentioned in the middle or at the end? But then I learned how important it is, the sequence of the quotes within the chapters.
Okay, so was there a particular chapter where that issue kind of came to mind? What was the hardest chapter to put together in that way? I see both of your eyes go.
Difficult question.
I think no, the whole sequencing was I struggled with it, I must say. But one example of a chapter that came together last was the chapter on Kanban. So for our people who are listening, Kanban it's not quite clear who created all these concepts, right? Or members of the Toyota family created most of the Toyota Production System and Lean, what we now call Lean concepts. But Kanban was probably a brainchild of Taiichi Ohno. Of course, there had to be a chapter in the book about Kanban, but the quotes, I struggled a bit with figuring out what quotes had to be in that chapter on Kanban. And I think we have a lovely selection of quotes. It makes a lot of sense. But it was tough, I think, to extract. We had to go. Personally, I went back to all the books and took another look at what we have on Kanban, how to articulate it, because it's such an interesting and yet a bit tricky concept. And there's a lot of talk about it, and a lot of that is nonsense, of course. So to go back to the creator, so to speak, and his quotes on Kanban, that was kind of a bit of a challenge. But overall, I think, it wasn't so easy to balance the chapters and to make it. This is our idea of a book of quotes is to make it like a novel. It has to pull you in. So the book starts with these hilarious quotes about thinking by Taiichi Ohno, which also relates to the 5 whys, the famous 5 whys, which Ohno-san himself talked about a bit. But then we go into Toyota history. There are fantastic quotes on Toyota history, I think, in the book. That chapter is also already worth reading because I think it's enlightening. I learned a lot about Toyota history doing the research for this book and putting together the.
Yeah, please, Stefan.
Yeah, I think. What is amazing about his work is that he had been working so long to establish the Toyota Production System. It's unbelievable. He did that for decades.
Yes.
And his ability to work on a system for such a long time is hardly understandable.
It took 30 years just to establish the Toyota Production System around Toyota Group, and then they started with the providers. So the how is it called?
Suppliers, the supply chain.
The suppliers.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, because there are many important figures in Toyota history. Shigeru Shingo is an important figure. He's briefly mentioned in the book. He published a lot, but of course he did. It's not quite clear today what Shigeru Shingo, to me at least, it's still not quite clear what Shigeru Shingo did at Toyota, and how the Toyota family was involved in making turning the Toyota Production System a reality. But here you see there are quotes in the book as well explaining that how they supported Taiichi Ohno during those decade-long quest for making the system coherent, cohesive, and so on. So all that I think is very interesting. I wasn't quite aware of the time dimension of this quest, that it really took 30 years from beginning to, in the 70s have it reasonably well installed. And of course, I think it's a unique story, somebody who dedicated 3 decades to one thing, making it just in time, making it lean, the whole company, a large company, of course. But that's super slow transformation. That would be another great title for the book.
See, I had to come in on that because I read that book and it's like, is this really something that Niels, he wrote a chapter on change and it has this change that takes decades to do, as opposed to taking 90 days to do. And like I had a hard time wrapping my head around that. And I wanted you to say something and Stefan, sure, please come in and interrupt either one of us at any point when you start going way off.
Did something stand out that you felt?
Yes. I will go to that exact quote. It was this one on 73. No, it wasn't that one. It was.
That's the last chapter of the book, I think.
Yes. It was. It's like something about there was like taking 30 years.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. I was young and very eager, but I saw that pushing sudden changes over a short period of time was not a good plan. So I decided to stay calm and proceed deliberately. I'm like, okay. So tell me more about how that relates to very fast organizational transformation versus, as you said, like very slow organizational transformation, maybe evolution. I don't know.
Of course, I'm not sure anymore who picked this quote, if it was Stefan or myself. Stefan picked like 2/3. I think I maybe picked 1/3 because Stefan did the initial digging. But I think it's a very important quote, indicating how, well, first of all, Taiichi Ohno supposedly was a pushy type. He supposedly pushed people to the edge, and he was harsh with them and rude. Some books talking about him are adamant about that he was not a nice guy. And so I even had a private conversation and with a lean expert when we edited the book, and he wrote back to me, Taiichi Ohno, he was such an arse. Asshole. I said, I do not get this from the work, and from the sources, but of course people perceived him as harsh and rude because he went there and talked about his expectations, which were dramatic. Like Shigeru Shingo, who told people, to reduce setup time from 8 hours to 10 minutes. Ohno said, like, you do this and that, and I'll be back in a month to look at the results, and then he went away. So that probably, and some people apparently were afraid of him. However, there is this side to Taiichi Ohno, that this quote that you just read out loud, it transpired a different side of Ohno, which is very important. He was very patient. Imagine doing a 30-year transformation. That shows the amount of patience and endurance that the guy had. So
commitment.
You cannot connect the dots, apparently. And one way why I think that particular quote is so important is to understand that, okay, this story happened 70, 80 years ago at Toyota, and Toyota didn't have open space beta. They didn't have very fast organizational transformation. They didn't have a sponsor. They didn't have an open space meeting to kick it off and do it in 90 days. So this was not a battle. This was war, to bring about the lean system. And it's so interesting, I think, looking back at history, that some people like Taiichi Ohno mastered that kind of thing, without the approaches that we now have that are much more effective and short and fast. But he still did it, and with it's easy with hindsight to say, this could have been faster. First of all, that's bogus, and secondly, it's disrespectful. And I think it's interesting to understand how much stamina these people had, if we look at jazz music, for example, how people build a career, we talked about Miles Davis and Chick Corea before, and other jazz musicians, they are building their careers for decades, and they become legends because they endure things. I recently saw Bill Evans, a saxophone player here in Germany, and he said he went from Wunderkind to and now he's considered a legend because he's old and he endured the thing, and he
endured Miles also.
And he endured most people, exactly, and it's so rare to find this, the endurance or the statement, the imagery, the history, the story of the persistence as well, and consistency. I think it's a beautiful thing. So this is not a model of implementation that you will find of implementation or realization of beta organizations today. It's a historical account that you get in the book as well of how they did it in their time.
Yeah. Well, say that about Taylor as well. I think Taylor.
Yes, Taylor was very persistent as well. Kurt Lewin was. Edwards Deming was very persistent. Oh my God, Edwards Deming, super persistent, right? Or McGregor. So, Stefan, what's your take on this?
Yeah. Thank you very much for highlighting this, because mentioning the historical context is very important to understand what Ohno-San achieved for Toyota, because we are talking about the period after World War II, and resources hardly had been available at that time. You can't compare the history of the Toyota production system to anything else, especially with regard to the automotive sector. When you compare the situation at that time with the current problems the automotive sector is struggling with, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that these days have been very difficult days for people to build up a concept, to change a production system. And this is absolutely interesting to study how he did that.
It's also important to, thank you, Stefan. It's important to understand or to appreciate, I think, that Toyota, until the late 50s or the early 60s, was close to bankruptcy most of the time. They had
exactly.
Yes. They were deeply in trouble. It wasn't just that Japan was devastated by World War II. Toyota nearly went bankrupt at the beginning of the 50s, and they struggled. So most of the time when the Toyota production system was established, or the foundations were laid, as Ohno explains in the book, the company was in dire straits, as they say. Sounds like a rock band.
They were getting money for nothing.
And chicks for free.
The resultants of swing. They were
exactly. So the company suffered, and then in 1965 they won the Deming Award. So and that, I think, the good times started in the early 1960s. Today, I mean, we cannot imagine Toyota to be a close to bankrupt company. The kind of success.
World market leader.
World market leader. Extreme financial, economic, innovative success, and so on, changed the world. Toyota changed the world in many ways. But this is the story, a true story of persistence, of ideas, great ideas that. Well, the initial ideas did not come from Taiichi Ohno, and he mentions this. Ohno-san mentions this in some of the quotes here. But he had this drive to get it done in practice.
Yes, but yes, I think we should take a minute to talk about the personality of Ohno-san. As you mentioned, many people thought he was a very rude guy, pushing people, as you mentioned, Niels. But we, within the chapters, People at Work and Automation with the Soul, we have been trying to show the other side of his personality, and the quote on page 60 is an example for that. We can teach so many different principles to the shop floor workers. However, true results can never be attained unless the shop floor workers begin to think on their own. And just to give you an example, people really matter within a company, and you need them to achieve your goals. There is no success within a company without the people on the gemba. And this, I love this quote, among others.
Yes, yes. This, I think. By the way, this relates to a TV show I'm currently watching. Not sure if you know. We have never talked about it, Stefan. I'm currently watching Slow Horses, a show on Apple TV.
Okay.
And there is a similar character. I have to drop out for a moment to fetch the mail, but then we can go back to the topic. Maybe you pick up on this.
Yes, yeah. Well, I wanted to go right into one of the topics that Stefan said. Was you're talking about, again, that people thinking on their own. And there was a quote that I wanted to bring in here from that chapter, talking about, Taiichi Ohno was such an arse, or whatever. And he was saying he was this idea of him convincing people. The quote that I found that rang out for me about that was, "You're simply acting like a mom for your workers. That's the main reason why they take a long time to grow." Is that so? This idea of, we talk about this paternalistic, this kind of, some say this patriarchal thing, this way of the managers are the parents of the workers, and that's like, this is like not what Ohno is saying, like what you're saying. It's like,
yes,
think, don't think what I think what you think. So
thank you so much for picking up this quote. And I can remember quite well that I had serious discussions with Niels. Shall this quote be in or not? And at the end of the day, yes, and he was unsure. And due to the reasons you mentioned, I think this must be in, due to the reasons you mentioned. And it's a lovely quote. And and this is exactly the problem we are facing nowadays. This is the alpha world, giving instructions to people, not taking them serious, and separating people into doers and thinkers based upon Taylorism and so on. And this quote you've chosen is a very good one.
No, thank you. And,
Yes.
and despite Niels's resistance or reluctance to put it in the book. So
yes, we had some discussion of. I think this. I'm enjoying this session because we have the opportunity to talk about these things, right? That we had this debates about certain quotes. We excluded some as well that Stefan suggested, and that I think weren't fitting, or where we then discussed, is this really what Ohno would be saying, or is this a mistranslation? What happened? Process. We had this about several quotes. Is it understandable by itself? Is it well translated? Is this likely to be the original message in Japanese that he wanted to convey? Because all this, of course, is part of a historical research like this, using original documents, published books, and so they might contain, blurred messages and so on. And we try to, of course, we were keen on not manipulating the quotes, on presenting them in a concept that makes sense, or sorting them in the way was very important, so that they could make sense. But I wanted to continue telling. The postman came, but so I had to drop out for a moment.
Did you ring twice? I thought the postman always rings twice.
Yes, but he only rang once. He brought 2 packages, in fact. So I wanted to talk about why maybe this is another element, I think, why Taiichi Ohno was frequently, why he was feared at Toyota at the time. We have to consider this is Japan, post-war Japan. And there is this man, stirring everything up and demanding things that do not seem to make sense in traditional business logic. And I think one of the reasons why, and his system, the Toyota Priduction System at the time, was called the Abominable Ohno System. There's a beautiful book. People, factory workers and so on, technicians and so on, they had an ugly name for it for much of the 50s and 60s, it seems. And I think one of the reasons why Ohno got this image is that he never explained things. We mentioned this in another quote in the book, in a chapter introduction. And this reminds me of a current TV character. There's a beautiful show on Apple. It's called Slow Horses. And the main character is a guy, Jackson Lamb. It's an agency. It's an MI5 story in England. Jackson Lamb, the main character, is played by Gary Oldman. And the beauty of the character, the beauty of the show is that this guy, Jackson Lamb, he never explains himself. He's very smart, very insightful, but he doesn't apologize. He's almost never wrong, but he doesn't explain himself, which is intimidating to most. And I was, while watching the show, I was reminded of, it must have been like this with Ohno-San, a guy who shows up. He has power. He's backed by the Ohno family, the Toyota family, and he demands crazy things, for the factory workers at the time, the engineers, the staff on the Gemba. He was demanding strange stuff, Rearrange this, take out this, throw away that, qualify people in stuff they weren't supposed to do, and so on. And he wouldn't explain. He would just demand these things. And that I think is very interesting about his persona, and also about why the transformation took so long. It was a vast company at the time already, huge company, and he couldn't, he wasn't into training. He did what Kurt Lewin would call action research. He acted things on the Gemba, and then people learned, and I think they took great pride, which is why so many of his pupils became lean experts, famous in their own way.
Well, there's a whole chapter on the Gemba in here, so
yes, I'm very proud of that chapter on Life on the Gemba. That's the chapter's name. I think that's a beautiful chapter. I learned a lot about Ohno-san's definition of the Gemba and how they at Toyota at the time framed this concept. Act on reality instead of wasting your time and your life in war rooms and with reports and so on. There are lots of great quotes about this, this action orientation that Ohno-san had. Stefan, you want to add?
I would like to add a quote. Standard work must be continuously improved for eternity. And as you know, I'm professionally. I have to do with quality management, and the concept of continuous improvement is so important. It has become an own chapter in the international norm for quality management, ISO 9001, and it goes back to this spirit Ohno-san emphasized to be ready, not to be satisfied with the status quo. Always rethink where and how you can improve, and it's better to start with small things instead of trying to get the things done immediately. The concept of continuous improvement is so important and sometimes neglected.
Yes, because we have great quotes about Kaizen and improvement, and the importance of standards that Stefan just mentioned. There are several quotes about the importance of setting standards so that you have a basis to improve things. So you need to first set a standard to know what the next level will be, or to reach it. Very interesting stuff.
There was something you said about standards in there that I thought was interesting also. I'll find the quote when I can, but it was about setting lenient standards.
Yes.
and that you can continue it. That seemed like, oh, this guy's so strict and it's requiring so much. But if you set a lenient standard, that kind of, it made sense after I thought about it, that you can allow that to grow.
By the way, that's a word I learned working on this book. I had never used, or I wasn't aware of this word, lenient. Lenient. I think it's very interesting. Yeah. Of course, this is also a journey. This is a journey in time. This book, it's also a journey in words, And of course, we must keep in mind that most of the quotes are somehow translated from Japanese to English, so we cannot be sure if things were said exactly this way. By the way, this was one thing that we also discovered, Stefan, during the work on this book, that the first translation of one of his Taiichi Ohno's own books wasn't that well. It wasn't so well translated. So the later edition from the 1990s or 2000s had a totally different tone, totally different vocabulary, totally different style. So we had adopted or taken some quotes from the first edition in English, so to speak. And then when we used the later edition, we had to review many of the quotes, and compare.
Almost all.
Yeah, they had all changed. And so, that taught us a lesson about the quality of translation in this particular. It's the book I'm referring to is Work-Based Management, the 100th birthday edition, much better translated than the previous English edition. So in the 1970s and 80s, they did bad shit with translating books from Japanese. Wasn't good. So this is also correcting this book might also be correcting some misperceptions that people might have because of translation errors. So
I want to ask again. I'll put this one to you first, Stefan. Were there any perceptions that you had of Ohno-san before and during this process of the book that were changed? How did your opinion of Ohno-san change as part of this process? Is there a particular way?
That's a very good question. I must admit that working on this book really allowed me to have a deep insight about his work. I had a rough idea that he was very important establishing the Toyota Priduction System, his importance for the development of quality management system, but working on a book and studying the original material, as Niels mentioned, and the books about him gave me a much deeper insight about his work. And you can compare it to the level of knowledge I had before. And this is the fun part of the work. When you start doing such a work, reading books and trying to comprehend the system behind and the personality is so interesting, and is opening your eyes about what he did for the company and what he did for the lean movement and quality management movement. I learned a lot, and it was a great experience for me to learn so many things about the Toyota's system. It's not only the Toyota Production System. The Toyota Production System is the most important part of the system, but there are other areas of management being important as well. And I would give you, I would like to add a quote from the chapter Automation with a Soul, and it's distinguished tasks that can be done only by humans from those that can't be done by machines. Do not use humans only as guards for machines. Instead, assign them to the tasks that can only be performed by humans. And when you are following up the current hype discussions about artificial intelligence and the dangers and people have that this new big thing will destroy our labor world, and that you can build the bridge from Ohno-San thinking to the current discussions. That tools can be very helpful, but human beings will always remain important because they have the capability to think, and no artificial intelligence never ever can replace that. Humans will always matter. This is what I learned from this quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, Niels, you put one of my favorite. I was looking for that exact quote that you put out there.
You can read it. It's the first quote from the same chapter, Automation with a Soul. Yes, you want to read it?
Yeah, and Stefan, you had me going right there too. Is that don't install new robots based on their popularity. Like,
just fantastic.
It's just like what's
always
happening.
been relevant. Yeah, but it has always been relevant because the tech, the hyping, of technology, the supposed, technology as solution trap, instead of seeing people as the solution. And that's the second quote in this chapter, very good as well. Machines are there for people to use, not the other way around. It's very foundational to the intelligent use of technology, which Taiichi Ohno was a master at. I think that's a very important, interesting point, right? He never overemphasized technology, but they really changed processes, changed structures, changed the system, and then deployed technology that was often very simple, like Kanban, and low tech, so to speak. Because of course, Kanban of course started with this system of cards and physical, indication of work, of physical system of work and flow, and then later they might automatize it, but first they had to master the system itself. So very interesting insights about how to deploy technology in a smart way. Yeah, Stefan, you have something else?
Yes, I can remember quite well when we discussed which should be the quote on the backside of the book, and I remembered quite well. Yes. I made a suggestion, and but we had a common understanding very quickly. Let the flow manage the processes, and not let management manage the flow. And it was mentioned in your essay about heroes of leadership, and I will never forget that, because this is one of the most, or in other words, the best known quote by Taiichi Ohno. And it reminded me that Niels published an essay about process management in the recent part, that top-down process management is a very bad idea. And this quote perfectly fits to your essay, Niels. It's a bad idea.
Yes.
For good reasons.
Yes.
So, Niels, what surprises came up for you in the process?
Lots and lots and lots. I just remembered one thing that surprised me. This is not related so much to the quotes or the work itself, but one thing that surprised me is that there is a certain scarcity of photos and videos. That surprised me most. I didn't expect that, so it was tough. We always include photos in the book, as chapter openings. So there are several photos, and I all extracted them from a single video that's also on YouTube. It's a very short video, and I went frame by frame through the video. Apparently, or obviously, Taiichi Ohno was an extrovert, so he makes all kinds of funny faces in the video, and but it was hard to to find good photographic or video material. I hope that one of my hopes of publishing this book is that I hope we can maybe over the next months or years, get to more archive material. There must be more photographic material. Some appears in books and in very bad resolution on the internet, but it wasn't easy to reconstruct much about his life. There's not much being said about Taiichi Ohno's life. many photos, not many videos, and he passed away, in 1990. So there should be ample material. He taught, he gave lectures, and so on. So yeah, that was also surprising. How hard it was, to put together the let's say the biographical material. Information is very scarce. There are a few famous photos and so on, but not much material around. I expected this to be more abundant, the archive material. And it seems that Toyota doesn't feel deeply connected to Taiichi Ohno either. Maybe I haven't been to the right places in Japan where he might be celebrated also, but he doesn't appear much. Yeah, and there are probably historic reasons for that. We touched upon that during the research as well.
People thought he was such an asshole, maybe.
No, I think Toyota struggled with heroes. That's more the problem. I think
that could be a good thing.
Maybe there was a management shift. When he retired, or when he was invited to retire from Toyota Group, there was probably a management change. He probably lost, backing at the company. That's my reading of it. It's an interpretation, not a fact. But it's pretty sure that the support he had for maybe 40 years or so, eventually it faded, and which is surprising still. Imagine doing the same transformational work for 40 years or so, and of course then at some point somebody wants to just do different or whatever, doesn't like you,
new CEO,
like your guts in some way. But he, of course, became, let's say, general manager of a Toyota's affiliated company, not part of the car business. But all that is very interesting, and it's a story not well told. We try to tell the story as well as we can in the book.
Yes. I was absolutely astonished to learn that it had been so difficult to find picture material or any background information about Ohno-san, even in Japan. As you know, the headquarters of Marubeni is in Tokyo, and of course, I contacted my colleagues in the head office of Marubeni, asking for support and help, and try to find material for the book. And I contacted Toyota in Deutschland, in Germany. I contacted Toyota in Japan, and there was absolutely no response at all. And a colleague of mine, a Japanese lady, I asked her, could you do me a favor and Google in kanji? Niels gave me a hint. We should try out if there is a difference, Google in English or in kanji. And some pictures could be found, but as a result, I was a bit disappointed. And it is a clear sign to me that he has been forgotten in Japan. As Niels mentioned, and this was our motivation to publish the book, to bring him back on the agenda of great iconic management people.
Yes.
There we see heroes. I want to go back a little bit to a question I'm curious about. Stefan, while you were handling the postman, Stefan and I were talking about this quote about the paternalist nature, the parental nature of management. That was a quote that Stefan brought that you weren't necessarily inclined to bring in. And maybe this is a question for Stefan. Was there a quote that Niels brought forth that you weren't sure of, that you had a little bit of concern about?
Well, sure, but it's difficult for me to just give you an example for that. We had as he mentioned before, we had a lot of discussions via mail or phone calls, and during the progress of editing the book, at the final stage where we had to make up our mind, this one should be in or not. Of course, there had been discussions between us. should it be in or not? But and I'm sure there have been quotes Niels suggested where I thought, I'm not sure, but as you know, at the end of the day, both co-editors need to be happy with the final version of the book, and it's quite normal that you have discussions whether a quote should be in or not. But I can't
think
give
Very
you a
diplomatic
concrete
response.
yes, but I can't remember. I can't give you a quote just now, but there had been a few.
Of course.
Yeah, I think we didn't have disagreements about quotes that I suggested. It's just that we had to, towards the end
Sometimes,
of the, yeah.
sometimes you found a better one than the first
Yes, I think
suggestion.
about that kind of conversation. Exactly. So we went back to the material several times. That was, again, this was harder than with W. Edward Deming's or Peter Drucker's material, which, by the way, I edited those volumes by myself, so there wouldn't have been any discussion. But this time, sharing the
Not
work,
this treated by some form of medication. So.
exactly. But this time was different, really, because we had to dig out. I felt that, for example, the chapter on Kanban, it was too slim, so we had to go back and see, okay, what have we been missing? Maybe, and that was something interesting for me. The quotability of Taiichi Ohno has been very highly underestimated. He's very quotable, I think they're hilarious, funny, highly witty. Many of the quotes reminded me of the work of Ernst Weichselbaum, the Austrian pioneer of Lean. And I thought, what the heck? The Ohno quote is very similar. Not similar, but they are very intimately related, the best quotes, But in Taiichi Ohno's books, the great quotes were often hidden in not so well edited paragraphs, or, in a book structure. We really had to dig them out, I think. It wasn't like with W. Edwards Deming. If you type in W. Edwards Deming quotes, you get hundreds. With Taiichi Ohno, it's a bit different. You get some misattributed stuff, very bad quotes, always the same sometimes. And we really, during the editing process, I thought, okay, nobody has ever quoted this anywhere, I think. Because it was like, it wasn't so, it was really hard work to figure out the key essential phrases, and to see, okay, this, I think Stefan in his first draft, or first bunch of quotes that he chose, maybe 100 or so, or 120, there was some that I thought, okay, this is I had read the books, but I hadn't noticed this in that quote, and those were the interesting, for me, very interesting insights as well, to identify the essence of Taiichi Ohno.
Thank you. Coincidentally, you published an essay about Weichselbaum this morning, and due to the fact that I'm off today, I had the time to have a look at it, and
wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
It directly came to my mind, what is the bridge between Ohno-San and Weichselbaum?
Yes.
And I took off the book from my shelf and turned some pages, and there's a chapter about the necessity of overcoming the system, and time orientation is a precondition for networking and self-organization. And here I can read, let me quickly translate it into English. This wonderful book definitely needs an English version. And as I heard,
I've been talking to him about this for a while.
Yes, we definitely need an English version of that book. It's fantastic. One of my favorite Niels Pflaeging book is definitely this one, for sure. And I just want to quote Weichselbaum to make it clear that there is a direct connection between Ohno-San thinking and the Weichselbaum system. and it's going like that. It's better to define the delivery time from the customer perspective in comparison to the outcome of machine capacities.
Mm-hmm. It's better to fix delivery time from customer point of view than to manage the organization starting from capacity, ideas of capacity optimization. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes. So thank you for clarifying this in other words. And this is exactly the bridge between these two giants.
Yeah, and I think it's a total bridge to beta as well. It's market steering at its core, which is that's one of the ahas that you both just brought to me right now. Is that's wow, that is such a great connection to what we talk about in BetaCodex, and that's wonderful. Would either of you like to read a particular quote as we approach the end of our allotted time here?
Well, usually I put something at the end that I think is the bridge to people's reality. Assuming that we each have misconceptions in our minds, it makes me think that the ability of people to relate to each other will become a significant strength. Which is very much about what the Weichselbaum system, about beta, open space beta, very fast organizational transformation. Taiichi Ohno was by no means a shallow thinker. That's what we get. I think people will get from this book of quotes. Stefan, do you have a preferred one? Another one that you would like to quote, whatever. we are fans.
There's only 100 or 200.
Exactly. There are 160 quotes, more than 160 quotes in the book. And of course, we kind of love all of them. So the question was kind of silly.
One of my favorites is knowledge is something you buy with the money. Wisdom is something you acquire by doing it.
I love it.
It's fucking beautiful.
That was what I love that you brought that, Stefan. That was one that I'm like, I'm glad. There was one story also that I was trying to find the quote in here, but again, where we are, about how Ohno's desk, it was always clean. He didn't have a pile of papers on it for management. He did not spend time messing around with that stuff. And I can't find the quote in there, but it was just an image came to me of like this person was all about being in the work and valuing the work and the people. And that struck me from in addition to the, I can't find the quote, but yeah.
It's in a chapter opening. It's not by Taiichi Ohno, but someone, I would have to look it up to see who it was by. But it was an observation, remembering that Taiichi Ohno he never thought he could find the truth in reports. The facts. That's why the importance of the Gemba, the place where the actual work happens, where value creation really happens. So he never he was never comfortable with being in a meeting room and going through the reports. Not that he ignored the facts or the numbers, but he found it insufficient. So he would go to the Gemba and observe the reality, which is often very different than the numbers. But imagine also, it's a company that's struggling, in the 1940s and 50s, struggling all the time. Results are miserable, or insufficient at least, for the company's survival. So I think that's the kind of spirit that Taiichi Ohno had. We are not doing so well, so we have to improve a lot. And Weichselbaum, by the way, had a very similar approach to doing stuff, also doing his consulting. He never said, okay, we will do a workshop for a day in the meeting room and then we do reality. I once asked to a consulting client, and there was a conversation with the owner and general manager, and then Ernst said, okay, but who is the person who really understands this? It's Frank or whatever, or Michael, and then Ernst would say, yeah, bring him in so that we can talk with him, and so the guy was brought in, and we had a conversation about the topic, and and they agreed on a change. The guy went out and it was done. Is this authorized by the owner and general manager? The guy had to nod in the meeting room. Then Frank or Michael went out and did the thing, And this kind of, immediacy, this kind of bias for action, this kind of Gemba orientation, as we might call it, it's something that's not very common these days. People have mental masturbations with analytics and business intelligence systems and boards, and even more boards and visuals and reports, and often fool themselves that this is the work of change, which it is not. It's mere analysis, and very interesting, very inspiring. I think how Taiichi Ohno for decades, disrupted this pattern of losing yourself in the numbers, losing yourself in the reports and in the meetings and so on. Very, very inspiring.
I just found a quote taken from the chapter Change, which perfectly fits to your current wording. I strongly believe that necessity is the mother of invention. When you are in financial trouble, it is your motivation to change that and to improve the situation.
Yes, and what I think is very inspiring about that is that, of course, the trouble is there in every company. This is not just a statement about Toyota at the time, but about companies. Companies are in trouble. Every organization has problems, of competition, at least, but often internal self-inflicted troubles. And to understand, to acknowledge that we are in trouble, we have to change something. Analysis is not enough. We cannot analyze our way to organizational health and success and innovation and that kind of stuff. So we have to go to the Gemba. We have to face the problems we really have and figure out a better system. Very inspiring, I think.
Thinking again. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to bring something? You're actually getting to the question. Is there anything that either of you wanted to bring up? Is there anything that got left out that you really wanted to have in the book?
A lot.
Okay. How?
No, not in this book. Not in this book. I think we included everything we wanted to include, right?
Yeah. Is there anything today that? Because there are a couple things that I was curious about that we didn't get to. Is there anything you wanted to bring up today that we didn't get a chance to riff on?
Stefan, you first. Is there anything you want to add? Something we missed in the conversation about Ohno-San, about the work, about the book?
As a summary of our discussions, I think it's important to highlight that, especially the quote I presented to you, is that when companies are in trouble, the first thing they should think about is their organization. And this is the approach of the BetaCodex. Nothing matters more than organizational development, and you can find a lot of quotes in the books being a proof of that. Point.
Yeah, thank you. The thing that I just said that there were many things that we didn't include in the book is that I think we kind of got to the conclusion, Stefan and I, that this shouldn't be the last book of the What Would XYZ Do series, so that we have to go on, right? So this book, we felt it was complete. I think I got the feeling, at least. Interestingly, the book has the same length as the previous book by W. Schmeing. So there's not more or less content in it. We ended up with exactly the same amount of pages and amount of quote, which is interesting. We didn't force that, but it just happened. But then again, we thought, okay, this has been such a great experience to do this so rich and enlightening that we should go on and do more of these books, of other heroes of beta, heroes of leadership, heroes of management, if you want to call it like that. So yeah, I think this is not done. We are in for more, right?
First of many. Yes,
for
sure.
So in 2020, Ryan, you have a project ongoing with me?
Yes, I do. My intention and dear desire is to bring one. What would Akoff do?
Yeah.
Russell
Yeah.
Akoff. And I've had a giant stack of like 15 books of his that were just
Yes.
just wonderful. Very difficult to come to 200 quotes. And then
No, it's not difficult. Why is it difficult? We have to talk. We have to talk.
Wow, it's difficult. There's so many great ones. There's so many great ones. I think that's
an Eckhoff, a particular Eckhoff problem. I think he is extremely quotable.
He's hilarious. He is hilarious. So
he even produced books of quotes by himself. So he's a tough one to crack. Yeah.
Yes.
But of course, the things need to be sorted in chapters, and and extracted. Yeah, he's a rich topic. And Stefan recently suggested another person. We don't have to mention who it is to keep the surprise.
So keep that.
But you are already in the process of collecting the quotes, right, Stefan?
Oh,
that's true. Yes, and I'm very happy to hear that this wonderful edition will continue. And the more people participating to develop this, the better it will be, for sure.
Yes. A welcome addition
because
to
the format is so unique. You won't find other books being comparable to this edition. What would do?
Well, yeah, I think I would like to highlight that there's a very nice design. Of course, the inspiration for these books comes from a book called "What Would Arnie Do?" with quotes of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not sure if you know, Stefan. A little orange book I found in Belgium a couple of years ago, and I thought, okay, this is hilarious and funny. Of course, I bought it. Right? Who doesn't want to understand the wisdom of Arnold Schwarzenegger? And he's very quotable, by the way. And then I figured, okay, there's so many great quotes missing from that book. It must be more. It must be edited differently, and the result is this format. And I think, we should do more. Yeah. Certainly. Sure. So we have more books in the works together collectively, and people can also suggest, further additions to the series if they like. Yeah, but we certainly want to work on 2 more in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
All right, gentlemen. No unfinal? No. So I think we've kind of come to the coda of our tune here. I think we're playing them on tune on the way out. It's been a delightful discussion, and I am. Yes, What Would Ohno-San Do? The book available.
Get the book.
Express. Get the book.
Available everywhere. Stefan and I, we also already got different editions printed in different locations, which look slightly different. But this is the format. Very nice, very accessible. On the Red 42 website, it costs €11, I think, and we ship internationally, and there are volume discounts, so that's a good place. But you can buy the book on any web portal you like.
Yes.
Internationally from all the sources.
Absolutely. Well, the folks who are watching here know how to find me and Niels. Stefan, how do people find you if they want to explore you and your work and what you exist to do for in the world?
What shall I say at this stage? The code of the session, it was an amazing experience for me, and I never thought that I could do a book together with Niels, which was a great experience for me personally. It was not work for me, it was big fun, and I learned a lot, and I'm very glad to hear that the series will go on, and I hope many volumes of this edition will be published someday. And I would like to thank you, Ryan, for giving me the opportunity together with Niels to present our latest edition, and I'm very thankful to both of you, gentlemen.
Wonderful.
You are reachable. You can be reached through LinkedIn, for example, through Instagram, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you're right. I'm available on LinkedIn, and this is the major platform. Instagram is more I would prefer being mentioned on LinkedIn, and because this is a platform for being about business management, leadership, and so on. And there you can reach me.
Great.
Good. Well, share wildly and widely, and like and subscribe, folks, on YouTube. You always do that. So, and with that, I wish you thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention, and for those of you out there watching, thank you for the precious gift of you and your time and attention. Be well, be more beta, and we shall see you very soon.